Good morning. Today we're going to talk about chapters 210 and 211 of Permaculture Designer's Manual. And the topics are stress and harmony and diversity. And they kind of play into each other. So that's why I'm including them together today. I'm going to make this kind of quick because sometimes it gets a little long-winded with the permaculture, and I'm going to try and just breeze on through this one and get you on with your day. But it's an important topic. So stress is essentially the prevention or the forcing of a function. And so that means that if you are trying to stop a plant or an animal from doing something, or if you are trying to force it to do too much of something, then you are creating stress on that element in your system. So it's important to realize, though, that not all stress is bad stress. In fact, our role in the garden is to provide enough stress on that situation so that it does not return to its natural state. So that's actually really important to understand. We're not just building harmony in our garden. We're building a harmony of symbioses. So the harmony part is where we are trying to provide our plants and our animals and other things in our functional systems with everything that they need to survive. But the stress that we put on them is that we contain them, we put them in contact with other plants that they may not, or other animals that they may not necessarily get along with. And then when we recognize that, we want to reduce that stress as much as possible, but then apply certain kinds of stress, like pruning, say, of a plant, or of harvesting, like when you're harvesting mint and you realize that if you harvest mint, it will then create another two stalks coming out of one originally. I do this with my kale, especially with my perennial kale collared plants. I harvest them, create stress on them, but that creates more food for me. So perhaps the plant would be very happy if I left it alone, but then it would return to its natural state. And that is a plant that is really there to create more seeds and to then create more plants, which is all well and good, but it doesn't serve my purposes, so I wouldn't be planting it if I didn't intend on eating the leaves. So by harvesting it in this way, I can multiply the number of stalks that are coming out of one of the plants that you might see behind me, and create more of a diversity, more of a supply of food for myself. So diversity in and of itself is not necessarily good. If it is not diversity where there are symbiotic relationships between the plants, then it just becomes chaos. So if you think about an orchard where you have a whole lot of diverse types of fruit trees, but you don't have the supporting organisms in the soil and growing nearby, the things that will attract the creatures that will eat the pests on the plants, the things that create a relationship with these plants to bring them nutrients, then you have essentially chaos, even though you've got a diversity of all these plants. And we are just starting to understand the relationships between elements in our gardens and in natural systems. So if you think that we have a really good grasp on this, there's so much to learn. This is a whole frontier that can be expanded and investigated. It's really fascinating when you think about, like, for instance, there's a book called Teeming with Microbes, and in the introduction, I believe, of that book, you have a picture of a root-eating nematode that has been trapped in fungal hyphae, the roots essentially of fungus, and that fungus has a symbiotic relationship with the tomato plant. So the root-eating nematodes trying to get at the roots of the tomato plant to eat them, and this fungus is essentially acting as a defender of that tomato plant and trapping. Like it's got a little noose you can see where it's like trapped this thing and has kept it from entering the roots of the tomato plant. So many things that we just don't understand. I mean, in that case, you've got a fungus that is acting essentially as a guardian and helping the tomato plant. And the tomato plant in return is feeding this, assumedly feeding this fungus to help it defend itself. So these connections are going on all around us, and they have been since the dawn of time. We're only just beginning to understand some of them. So by putting together systems of things that we think are going to work together, then seeing what works, then observing. Observing is very important in building these symbiotic relationships between organisms in our system. You observe and you see what is working, what is not, and sometimes you need to add something, tweak something, or sometimes you're just plain wrong and things just don't work out. So in any case, that is Bill Mollison's take and my interpretation of the concepts of stress, harmony, and diversity. And so if you've got any questions about that, please drop your questions in the comments below. Please feel free to add your input there. Thanks a lot for joining me.